Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're super excited to be chatting about Web Mapping 101 this morning. What is it and making it work for you? All right, and we'll just give everyone a few more moments to trickle in here this morning. We have a lot of folks registered for this webinar. Maybe in the meantime, let's ask, where is everyone tuning in from this morning? Drop it in the question panel there. Cool, it looks like we have folks tuning in from different areas of Europe, the States, some fellow Canadians as well. Awesome. All right, and without further ado, let's kick things off and introduce our presenters.
Hi everyone. So today you're in for a really good presentation on web mapping and we are so excited to be here. I'll start off by introducing myself first. My name is Sienna Emery. I'm a technical support specialist on the customer solutions team. And today I'm joined by Sinai and Mark. Do you want to say hi, guys?
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
Okay, cool. All right, so for the next portion, we're going to turn our webcams off to preserve our bandwidth, but we're just going to go through some web mapping concepts with you. So for today's agenda, first we're going to be introducing the topic of web mapping and discussing how it works. After that, we're going to go through a few demos. So we have translating data to ArcGIS Online and a simple web map. We're also going to show off Mapbox and working with vector tiles. And then finally, we're going to do a custom code example using the HTML report generator before doing a Q&A and a wrap-up. Even though we say we're doing Q&A at the end, please ask us questions throughout. We have lovely people on Q&A on the back end of this webinar. So if you want to know anything, if you have any questions as we're going through, please feel free to chat them out to us. So why would people be interested in web maps? Web maps provide a widely accessible way to visualize data and share that valuable data. Anyone has access to the internet now, or I should say pretty much anyone. Lots of people work with web maps in their day-to-day lives, so it's just a great way of sharing information for the general public. So web mapping is the process of taking your data and displaying it on a map that's accessible to anyone. Oftentimes, these web maps are used to display data to the public in a way that they understand. Oftentimes, a web map consists of a base layer. So the base layer is like a reference on the world, and then layers of data on top of it. They're often interactive. You rarely see static web maps anymore. So they allow users to adjust the viewing area, zoom in and out, select features to get more information, or even toggle on and off those layers. This is a web map that I've used a lot. Especially this summer. So if you know, this summer we're on the west coast of Canada and we had a lot of forest fires. So this was a web map I was checking quite frequently to see, is it okay for me to go outside? How is the air quality? So anyone has access to this map. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, it's super small, but you can see that this base map is a leaflet map based on that. And I can scroll through the different features here. I can click on them to get more information. I can also toggle on and off these layers. So I have all layers on right now, but I can choose to toggle them on and off. So this is an example of a really good web map because it's easy for someone like me who's just a layperson to understand what's going on and get the information I need to go about my day. As well, I wanted to introduce the concept of neogeography. So when we were talking to Dale Lutz about this webinar originally, this is something that he really wanted us to talk about because before there's concept of web mapping, there's a concept of neogeography. So basically it's geography, but It's newer because it's not just a set of experts looking at the map anymore. You want to present that data to non-experts as well. So there's a few different types of web mapping platforms if you want to get started. You have your web mapping applications. So these are out-of-the-box applications. Pretty much all you need to do is upload your data. The website is already hosted for you, and you can share a link to your web map really easily. Analysis is typically built into that platform, so you don't need to do any coding. You don't have to see any coding. It's all hidden for you. However, some people might want to use web mapping APIs. So these are web maps that you access using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to pull it all together. But it does require a knowledge of these different languages. You can create a very basic map using FME without the need for understanding anything like JavaScript, CSS, or HTML. And we'll talk about that throughout the presentation. So for different types of web mapping applications, the big one that I think of right away is ArcGIS Online. So we're an Esri partner. We use ArcGIS Online pretty much every day here. And on the right, I have an example of a dashboard that was created in ArcGIS Online. So it's a very easy platform. Just upload your data and you can get started. As well, the other ones that I'm aware of are Cardo and Mapbox. But if you know of any other web mapping applications you'd like to share, maybe just chat them out and we'll give them a shout out on the webinar. As well, I thought it'd be important to talk about if you have a BI tool, they might have some spatial compatibility as well. So the ones I can think of are Tableau Online, Click, and Power BI. I have an example here from Click. This was created for a BI webinar we did a few years ago that Nathan hosted. And its example, I believe this is crime data on a map. So it is a way to visualize your data in a web mapping platform. On the other hand, we do have lots of different web mapping APIs. So we have some examples here hosted on safe.com/demos. So these were made with custom code, but we do have some non-coded examples on safe.com/demos as well. So on the left-hand side, we have Mapbox. And what this Mapbox map is doing is it's receiving a stream of data that we're sending it from FME, and it's displaying those points on a map. So these points will change quite often. In the middle, we have an example of Google Maps. I'm sure most people could kind of recognize that. In this example, we have a GeoJSON layer that's built into the map to highlight the area a user can select, and then they can download some data from that area. The one furthest on the right, that is an example of an ArcGIS API, and it's the same thing as the one in the middle. So it's a data download service that you can select an area on the map and get some data from that area. So you might be wondering, okay, so you're giving me options of different web mapping applications I could use, but how do I actually get my data into that web map? Well, FME can really help with that. So our strength is we bring the power of spatial data to your decision making. So we're really used to working with spatial data here at Safe Software. Our purpose is to get the data you need in the format you require. So just a little background on us. We've been solving data challenges for over 27 years. We're used by over 13,000 organizations. We have lots of customers and partner services, as well as a very active community. This is the FME integration platform. So on the very left, we have FME desktop. That's where you'll build and you run your workflows. In a little bit, I'll be giving a demo of what that looks like. In the middle, we have FME server. FME server is where you automate your workflows. And then we have FME cloud. So FME cloud is just a hosted version of FME server. With FME desktop, you can connect your different data systems, use our custom transformer or use our transformers to do something with your data, and then you can either run this workflow over and over again locally on your desktop, or you can publish it up to server where you can automate the workflow. So let's get started with our first demo. So this is how to get data into ArcGIS Online and a simple HTML. So again, I mentioned that we work with Esri a lot and ArcGIS Online. FME has a built-in ArcGIS Online reader, so you can get data from ArcGIS Online, and a writer as well, so we can push data to ArcGIS Online. So data from many sources can be combined, modified, and pushed to ArcGIS Online. And we have a really good tutorial there about how to get started working with ArcGIS Online or Portal. Once data is in ArcGIS Online, it can be visualized and analyzed. These maps, you can take them and embed them into an existing HTML page. So if your company has a page already, you can take that link and easily embed your web map there. Maps can be shared, so you could share them just with your organization or with the public. And then these maps are all compatible with anything that you're going to view them on. So a web browser, ArcGIS Pro, smartphones or tablets, you can use these maps quite easily. We also in FME have the HTML report generator. So this is how you can take your data and create a basic HTML page. The HTML report generator will take your geographic data and then automatically create a web map from that. This can be completed without any custom code, or you can use some custom code in the HTML report generator to enhance your results. So let's get started. In this case, I have a feed of JSON data that's updated regularly, and I want to keep that data updated and posted to ArcGIS Online. I don't want to manually do this, and I don't want to have to upload the data every 2 weeks. FME can help me by creating the solution and allow me to post the data. So now I have an automated way of pushing data to ArcGIS Online. So let's take a look. This is FME Workbench. With FME Workbench, I have readers and writers and transformers in between. So a reader is how I get my data into my workspace. So I can take this URL here and copy it and put a GeoJSON reader on my canvas. All I have to do is type it in to get it and copy and paste. If I go and I run this, I can get all my data from this online source. It doesn't have to be an online source, it could be a file as well. But in this case, I want the most up-to-date data, so I'm using it directly from that online source. All right, next I want to manage my attributes. I'm not sure if you took a look at everything going on here, but it's quite complicated. I don't really understand what all of this means. So I just want to simplify things, and I'm going to use an attribute manager to do that. I have one custom built up here. I connect my reader to the attribute manager, and I can open it up. So the first thing I'm going to do is rename some of these attributes. So meg, I want to turn that into magnitude, and then I want to change the time and updated. It's in epoch time, which is seconds from 1970, and it's in milliseconds, and I want it in seconds. So I'm just doing a little calculation there. And I'm also changing the category based on the magnitude. So I was able to find categories online, and I've added them in here. So this is a conditional value. If the magnitude is less than 2.5, then an earthquake is not usually felt, but can be recorded by a seismograph. And then if it's higher than that, it's going to have a different value here. Next, I want to push this to ArcGIS Online. One thing I am going to do is take that date time that's in epoch time and just convert it to FME time. So I can use a date time converter. My date time attributes I'll have to select. So I have my time and my updated. My input format. Can change that over to seconds. And then I can run this workflow to push my data to ArcGIS Online. One thing I'll note about this writer that I've already set up is I'm going to insert all this new data and I'm going to truncate this data first. So I'm going to get rid of all the data that's already in that feature layer and push my new data to it. So I can go ahead and run that workflow. All right, perfect. So now I can take a look at ArcGIS Online. I already did some visualization of this feature layer beforehand, and the visualization is kept even though the data has changed. With ArcGIS Online, I can go through and I can click on my different attributes and get some information based on them. All right. So going on from there, I'm going to do a different example where I'm taking the same data and then I'm going to put it into an HTML report generator. So from this attribute manager, I can connect it to my date time converter again. This is doing the same thing, but it's just going to take it and put it in a more readable format. I have an attribute manager here. So with the HTML report generator with my data, I can have a pop-up. So I'm putting the data that I want in my pop-up there. These are some statistics I'm doing just to get a histogram made. This histogram will be turned into a bar chart. But I'm going to have my HTML report generator here. So in this first HTML report generator, I'm going to create a header, earthquake data, fun. Probably not the actual header that you would use if you're using this, but you know, gotta keep it fun. And then next I'm going to select a map. There's various ones you can use and Snai will show off them in a little later, but I'm going to use Esri Leaflet. This label attribute, that's the pop-up. The data is already coming in from my workflow, so I don't need to add anything in the feature layer URL, but I could have a URL there. And I'm going to select some satellite imagery. From there as well, I'm going to add another HTML report generator to create a bar chart with some of my statistics. So this X label will be my count, and my Y label will be my value here. So what this is doing is the statistics calculator is creating a histogram with the magnitude. So for each level of magnitude I have, I'm going to create basically just a count of them. And I can go and I can run the rest of my workflow and view that output HTML. So here is my map. As you can see, the visualization isn't as good as it is directly in ArcGIS Online. I did look up how you could change that. Unfortunately, it is through custom code. So the HTML report generator is good for giving you an idea of what your data looks like. But if you want to do some advanced visualization, you're either going to have to do some custom code or do something like use ArcGIS Online. I'll show how easy it is to fix your mistakes in FME. So I did not like that result. That is not what I wanted. So I'll go ahead and fix it here. Rerun this workflow again. Take a look at my output. And now I'll get the correct results. Ooh, there's a category 7. Anyways, so this is my data. On the bottom, I have magnitude, and then I have count on the side. So that's the magnitude of the earthquake and the count on the side. I think the 7 might be a mistake because my attribute rounder might be rounding a category 6 up. But we can take a look at that later. Anyways, that's what I have to show off right now, and I'll pass this off to Sinai.
Okay, next we're going to talk about some FME tools for web mapping. And web maps advance beyond the typical GIS kind of realm because they also require knowledge of web development, databases, strange data formats sometimes, any number of things. So we're going to take a very high level overview of some of the important parts that maybe you just want to be aware of and highlight where FME can come in. And then you can pick and choose which tools best suit your workflow, whether you're a full-fledged web developer or someone who's never written a line of HTML and maybe doesn't even care to start. We can help you as well. So what makes up a web map? Base maps are often working hard in the background. Traditionally, web maps used raster tiles. So rasters will load static images for each zoom level, but they're unchanging and they're not customizable. It's basically a JPEG or a PNG, and you can't do too much about it if you want to tweak it. But if you've ever used something like Google Maps, you may notice that the features change as you zoom in and out, and that is a vector tile set, and they're made up of different layers that can be dynamically displayed or customized. We don't often need a fully custom base map. You can usually just grab one off the internet for free. A general theme is usually enough just to give your features context. And for the features, that's what we're interested in, and there is a lot of different formats you can use here. So they're typically vector, points, lines, and polygons, and these features might be in a plain text format that the browser can interpret itself, or we can reference other hosted data formats in our script. Kind of depends on your mapping platform you're using, but GeoJSON is a great place to start. It's likely going to be compatible with any mapping application you pick up. Vector tilesets also function well as features, as well as all the customization. They're very lightweight, so they're great for working with large data sets. There's open source tools for creating tiles from standard spatial formats, but FME also has writers that can make that part a lot easier. So here are some of the readers and writers for formats that you might be using in web mapping. Some are more common than others, but we likely have a tool for what you're doing. But web development is the part that sets today's topic apart. So for a web page, just to sort of take a step back and look at the different parts, we need the HTML to organize that content. We need the CSS frameworks like Bootstrap to style it. And then we need JavaScript to make it responsive. So because we expect to be able to interact with web maps like panning around and clicking on features, these are things that JavaScript does. So there's both open source and proprietary JavaScript libraries that we can work with. And then the last part to a web map is all the data and all of this script needs to be hosted on a server somewhere. So here are just some of the tools for all of those different parts of web mapping. So we have tools for building your scripts like the HTML report generator and layouter. We also can connect to lots of different cloud platforms and databases for hosting your data. And of course, we have FME server for automating these processes and delivering the data and keeping it updated. So the point is that FME can support mapping workflow in small or large ways. So instead of struggling to integrate dozens of services, which can really easily happen in these workflows, we can use FME to build and facilitate any part of that workflow. It's really up to you where you use it. It can be just your data, or it can be a top-down front-to-end workflow for delivering a web mapping application. So before we get into demos, let's just take a quick look of everything we covered. I think it's important to understand how a web page, its anatomy. So once you get your web mapping application from FME, you can take that and customize it if you like. It's just good to know the theory. So here is a web mapping application that I built entirely with FME using Mapbox. We're using a browser to look at styled content. So we know that we're looking at an HTML page with some CSS, and this is kind of the skeleton of it. You can see just some headers and a table set up here, and FME created that for us. The background is a street map, and it's specifically a Mapbox base map that's referenced just in the script, and you can see it's highlighted up there. Then we have some lines and some points there with some camera markers that you can see. These are our features, and you can see that each are referenced in the script. So we have at the top, we have some vector tiles there, a URL to an MVT file. We know that's a vector tile set. And then the second is a GeoJSON file for our points, and those are both hosted elsewhere on Amazon. And then lastly, when we're looking at this map, we can point and click on things in the map, and that's just more JavaScript for you. So if you look in the script, there's even a function there for clicking on one of those camera icons and having the map do something for you. So those are the basic building blocks of a map, and each of those were built with FME, with the exception of that little fancy function to click on the pointer and deliver an image. That one was a bit of customization. So we're going to use FME Server for these next demos. This is our platform for automating, integrating, and facilitating enterprise-level workflows, and that's going to be really useful for all steps of web development. Okay, so we're going to carry on with Mapbox and use our HTML report generator to build a simple map with some of our own data. So we have a workspace to start with here. Here we have a very simple data set and workspace. We have a file database containing points for cultural centers, and at runtime, we can select which neighborhood cultural centers we want to see. Let's just select OK and run. And we want to take a workspace like this and create a web application that allows our end users to select and view these points in the neighborhoods that they choose. Stream that back to them either on the browser or mobile. So the first and really only step we have to do is add a HTML report generator to our workspace. You can see we have all these feature types. It might take a really long time to connect all of those ports. So just a quick workbench tip if you're ever in this situation. We can use the feature type window to select all of the ports on one side and then their destination, hit this connect button, and it does it for us. After that, we want to select our mapping template, and we've already seen Esri Leaflet in action, and a little later we're going to see Google. For now, we're focusing on Mapbox. We have these options between the Leaflet Mapbox as well as the GLJS, which is their current product and built for the fastest rendering of vector tiles. So that's what we want to do right now. We do need an authentication token for using Mapbox, and you can get one of those after making an account. After that, we set it up really similarly to the Esri ArcGIS web mapping template. We choose colors and labels. We can choose the base maps offered by Mapbox, any WMS URLs. You might have some data online you'd like to include. What sets the Mapbox template apart is that we have this option to use the vector layers, and we add these by feature layer URL as well as our source layer. And the easiest way to do that is to link directly to a tile set from Mapbox Studio. So let's go over to Mapbox Studio and we can see what that looks like. We're just interested in vector tiles, so avoid anything rastery sounding like DEM or satellite. Let's see, traffic sounds like it would be okay. So you can see inside here we have only one layer called traffic. So we want to copy that for our source layer. And we don't actually need a full URL, we just need a reference to this tileset ID. So let's copy that ID and go back to our workspace. And inside the HTML report generator, we can paste that. And then remember, we want the traffic layer. Just select OK. So lastly, we just need to add an HTML writer to our page. And select destination. And we'll call this our neighborhood culture map. Okay, we can add that to the canvas. So now we have a workspace where we can choose which layers to read, and then it creates a web map dynamically from those layers and then streams it out as HTML with Mapbox. So I've already uploaded this to FME server, which we're going to have to do to share it with others. So let's head over to FME server and create a web mapping application with server apps. So we're going to build a workspace app that uses this workspace. And we can give it a title and a description. We can also customize workspace apps. So you can add colors and your own logos, all sorts of cool stuff. We want to make sure that we're using the data streaming service, and we select that when we publish it to server. And that's because we want to deliver the web map back to the end user at runtime. And here we see our parameters for picking neighborhoods. So we'll just select OK. We can take a look at this app. And these neighborhoods are fine for our first run. Okay, so I've added some things like a title and a table to this particular map, but here you see we have all of our cultural centers on the map. And we've also enriched this map with the vector tiles from Mapbox. So if you're curious what this all looks like in the back end, you can inspect the page in your browser typically and take a look at the HTML. So you can see all of the elements that FME has compiled for us. We have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, our table. If I open up this script tab, this is where all of our Mapbox stuff is. So you can see all of our cultural center points have been written out in GeoJSON, and it's super easy to understand because it's just a dictionary with keys and values. The other thing you might notice is that as we zoom in and out, that the vector tiles adapt to that zoom level. They get more detail or less, and that our GeoJSON points actually don't do that. So that's a key difference between the two, and part of why vector tiles are the easiest way to offer some of the best end user experience. So just to recap, GeoJSON is a great bet for most web mapping. We can also use Mapbox Studio vector tiles inside of our workflows, and we can use FME server workspace apps with the data streaming service to easily share your web creations with others. For this next demo, it's going to be pretty high level, but since we've sung the phrases of vector tiles, let's make some together and use them in a map. And I've already set this up in a workspace. This will save us from some more of the tedious configuration, but this workspace will be available for you after the webinar to refer to. But I'll just point out some highlights so we can get a better idea of how vector tiles work. So you'll notice that our starting data sets are state, county, and municipal boundaries. It's just some polygons for each level, and inside of this feature writer, we're writing to a Mapbox vector tile set. So each feature type is a different layer, and we can write out different zoom levels for each. This will allow us to mimic that sort of slick user experience as you do while using something like Google Maps or those vector tile sets from Mapbox. Next, when we write out these vector tile sets, they'll produce a JSON metadata file. So I've written them out to this folder named New Jersey. And inside, these represent all of the different zoom levels. And then we have this metadata file in JSON, so we can see some things like the different layer names, any attributes associated with those layers, that kind of thing. And inside of each of these zoom levels, we have MVT files. So if we want to see these tiles on the web, we're going to need to upload them to a server. And in this case, in our workflow, I use the Amazon S3 bucket that we have available, but you could use this on your own database. You could put this to Azure up on the cloud. Just make sure that they're publicly available if you're trying to use them on a public web map. And after we've uploaded our vector tiles to a server, we can actually use them just as we did the Mapbox Studio vector tiles in that last demo. So I have a workspace that does just that. Everything is nearly identical to our last two demos, but opening up the HTML report generator, you'll notice that our vector tiles instead point to an Amazon URL. So that is a tile set that we just wrote, and we have an entry for each layer that we want to see on our map. So municipal, counties, and state. So to view this on a map, of course, we can publish this workspace to FME server and see our results. So we can go back to server and we can run that last workspace. With the data streaming service, we don't need to set any parameters for this. And we're zoomed in just because I have a center point. But as we zoom out, we'll see we're starting to see the shape of a municipal boundary. They're quite small, and as I keep zooming, those municipal boundaries turn into county boundaries at our next zoom levels. And then finally, we get the boundary for the entire state. So I think that looks pretty good for a 10-minute workflow. So to review, we can try out vector tile sets for more responsive maps, dynamic maps. In many cases, we can upload them to a server to use inside of our web mapping application, and we can connect to a lot of different databases and cloud services through FME. And aside from creating your own vector tile sets, there's tons of open source data sets available online for web mapping that you can use inside the HTML report generator as well. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Mark to show how we can build on this with custom code and create a really cool web mapping application.
All right, thanks, Anai. So yeah, when you combine all these skills together and you're looking to add even more functionality to your web maps, you can extend the HTML report generator with custom code to turn your web maps into simple web applications. Tons of JavaScript libraries, APIs, and CSS frameworks can be incorporated into your web pages to design and style various components and add interactivity. This gives you a lot of flexibility to get creative and use your web programming skills in FME. And we did just that with a game running in FME server. So those of you who've been to our world tours in the past, you'll know that we've actually built games powered by FME like Fun with Flags and an Escape Room. FME strikes again, and this time we made a web map game for guessing where a randomly picked city is located based on a Google Maps satellite base map. So why did I use custom code here instead of the prepackaged Google Maps base map that comes with the HTML report generator? Well, I needed my own styling and settings in the web map definition, like locking the ability to pan, zoom, and display labels so that players can't cheat. And on top of that, I used some extra JavaScript and CSS to add a leaflet web map picker on the top left so that users can submit their answers. And I got this code online written by a web map developer. When the user submits their answer, a webhook URL is called for FME server to run a workspace that compares the user's answer to the actual answer and then displays the score. This whole process uses a combination of FME server running jobs with the data streaming service, webhook URLs, the FME server JavaScript library, and a custom web page template with the Google Maps base map. So the goal was to embed a custom web map with some of my own interactive elements into a web page. And the way to solve this challenge was to use the custom code element in the HTML report generator so that I can have those automatically generated custom web maps based on incoming data. So now let's jump into the demo. So here is the workspace that I have for actually getting a random city around the world. And what I have starting off is just a shapefile that contains just over 2,500 different cities all around the world. You can see those displaying here with just points. And then the rest of my workspace is just grabbing one of those random points, and then it's passing that into my HTML report generator. And you can see here I have just a custom HTML section. And when I open this up and give it a little syntax highlighting so we can see what's going on, you can see that this is all custom code for my web page. You can see at the top, I'm referencing a bunch of JavaScript libraries such as jQuery, and I'm also referencing some CSS files and JavaScript files that I have hosted on our own S3 instance. And you can also see here that I have the Google Maps web map definition, and this is all just JavaScript inside a script tag. And you can see here that I'm centering the map based on the randomly picked cities' X and Y values. And you can see here with those extra settings that I am locking the zoom controls and I'm locking it on the satellite view. And then the rest of the web page is just for loading in that picker. Also some instructions for how to use the game and how to play, and some extra code in the end. But I'm not going to dive into all the code, and I'm just going to show how this app works. So here I'm on FME server, and this is the starting workspace that will load up the first round of the game. And as it loads, so it has opened up a random city in the world. So team, where do we think this is located?
Okay, so a southern coastline somewhere.
Looks fairly green.
Mm-hmm. It looks like there might be, I think that's just an inlet at first. I thought it'd be a marina. I'm
I have
getting,
no idea where this is.
yeah, there's no
No.
cities around, which is harder too. The southern coast, I'm almost thinking like the southern coast of the states, like where Alabama is.
Sure, so
Yeah,
just
that
drop
looks
it in
good.
somewhere here.
Yeah, sure, let's give it a try.
Let's try it.
All right, just throw it somewhere random, I guess right here.
That
And I'm going
looks
to
good.
submit the answer. And oh, we were actually not that far off.
Oh, hey,
This
Cuba.
is in
good one,
Cuba.
Sienna.
So pretty close. So
That
yeah,
is a respectable result, I think. It's pretty close.
yeah. So you can see here, and what I did was when I submitted that answer, it just took that point that we plotted onto that web map picker and submitted it to FME server to validate that answer. And then you can see here where it's loading up this custom pop-up. This is using Bootstrap modals, and this is where you can add all this custom code into your web pages. And then you can see I have another embedded web map to show our user versus the actual answer. And then requesting a new game simply runs the workspace again. You can also see in the top right corner, I've added another modal with instructions for using the application. So yeah, there's a lot of options here with how you want to customize your web pages. The limitations are endless. It's all up to how far you want to add the custom code. All right, so that brings us to the end of our demonstrations. And now that we're all ramped up, everyone dive right in and share your data with your web maps. To summarize the points and the topics that we covered in the webinar today, it's really easy to get into web mapping with just a few clicks in FME. If you're new to web maps, you don't need to worry about custom code, but we provide our own base map templates in the HTML report generator that work instantly with your data. And the HTML report generator is the place to go, and you have the flexibility to make your own web maps as simple or customized as you like, whether it be just picking one of the base maps that we provide or going with your own custom vector map tiles. The best part about web mapping is that you can share your data visually and in an easy to understand way to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And they're easy to use for even non-technical people, so it's a great way to make your information and decision-making products widely available with the help of FME. So for next steps, if you have anything that you'd like to chat with us about regarding your projects or your data challenges, feel free to contact us at info@safe.com and we'd love to chat with you. Also, download our latest release of FME 2021.2, and you can also download the workspaces in this webinar once it's published. Also, if you'd like to get a free trial of FME Desktop or FME Server, you can certainly find that and those download links on our website. And take these workspaces that we showed you in the webinar today and apply them to your own data challenges to break down those barriers and make your lives a whole lot easier and for everyone and sharing those data projects that you have. And for resources to learn more about web mapping, we have a couple of blogs that we have online. One is for our ultimate guide on online mapping. We have another one with 8 ways to visualize your geospatial data in a web browser. And if you want to learn more about our HTML report generator, we have an article on that. And for getting started with ArcGIS Online, we have another tutorial on that as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. So as a thank you to you all joining us today, we do have a community badge code that you can redeem. Just visit fme.ly/webinar badge. And here is today's code. And I will drop that in the chat as well in case you missed this slide. Reach out to us. So if you're interested in building plugins and would like to be a part of our beta testing team later this year, email our product manager, Claire, and here's her email as well. I will drop that in the chat. The peak of data integration, we're all eagerly anticipating this here at SAFE. It will be taking place August 24th to 26th, and I will drop the links for applying to present if you have a story to share that's just been extended. And also register now, we're still in early bird savings. FME World Tour, March 22nd to June 24th. We have the full tour schedule posted and also a link to register at an event closest to you. Check out our upcoming and on-demand webinars. We have a ton of great content upcoming as well as past webinars, safe.com/webinars.
All right, so I think we're ready for Q&A now.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw a ton of great questions coming in throughout here. Okay, lots to sift through this morning. Great questions, everyone.
Yeah, so there's one that we haven't answered, and it says, can we add an extra web map link to the list apart from the existing list in the HTML report generator? I don't believe there's a way to do that other than if you added some custom code at the beginning. You always have that option to add some custom code. So I think you could probably do that. I haven't tried it out myself. Can we play around? Sorry, Mark, Sinai, do you have anything to add to that?
If you're wanting to add more vector tile sets, you can do that with the Mapbox template. So there's as many spaces as you like to add in references to tile set URLs. But as far as GeoJSON and Esri, yeah, I think you'll have to add those in with custom code.
Have we ever tried that? Like, so in the HTML report generator, you can select what you want to put in. So you can put in like multiple charts and stuff. I've never tried actually adding multiple maps in there.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a way to do it.
Yeah, you'll have multiple map views on the HTML page, but yeah, what you're looking for, and that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, in those cases, when you have multiple elements on the same page, you'll also find the HTML layouter. I think that's the name of that transformer. That will also come in use for formatting and setting up that web page.
And so we do have a question. Can we play another round of City Guesser? And I think we can, but like maybe let's get to make sure no one has any questions and then do one at the end. Does that work for you, Mark?
Yeah.
You're the one who wants to host it.
Yeah, sure, I could.
It's always a fun game.
Yeah. We actually had like an initial round of it during like our practice for this webinar, and we were so close. I don't think we're that close again.
That was crazy.
we have a comment here, which is, I found that Tippecanoe. Have you used that before, Snai?
I haven't used it, but it's an application or tool for creating tileset layers. And I'm just checking out the comment here. Yes, you can append tilesets and apply filters when you're working with hierarchical data, which, yeah, Tippecanoe is really powerful. It does require some knowledge of how to use it, and you'd have to integrate that into a custom code. You could probably use Tippecanoe with FME, but it'll have to be custom. As for our template right now with tilesets, you can't apply different styling to the different vector layers, but it's something I hope we can do in the future. And as for now, you'll just, again, have to customize it if you want custom styling for each of your layers that you're adding, which is possible. But yeah, Tippecanoe could definitely be used with the template. It'll just have to be a little more investigation into their documentation. What else do we have?
We've got one, or is FME server capable of handling, let's say, 10 concurrent calls when your web map is used more often? I think if that's in reference to like what was demonstrated with the City Guesser game, where it's running an app in the data streaming mode to load the app in the view of your browser, that would be more dependent on the engines that you have on your FME server, because loading that web map would be like running the workspace and then returning that result back. So we do have more details on FME server engines on our website. If you search that up in Google, you can find out more details if you're not familiar with how the engines work. But essentially, one engine can run one job at a time. And if it's really short and it's just loading that map instantly, then you should not have much problems running a lot of these web map calls at the same time.
Mm-hmm. These should be really quick jobs, so your engine should only be in use for like a few seconds at a time. So you shouldn't have that much lag in between people being able to run jobs, but it is a huge consideration if you're trying to get like thousands of people to use City Guesser at once, then I could see you running into issues. If you can change the configuration of the writer, is it necessary to update the reader? Or is it just when you change the data that the reader reads in? So yeah, it would just be the data that the reader reads in. You can change the writer all you want. It will not affect your reader. If you update your reader, it's typically because you're trying to point it at like a different data source or something, or read in a different table. So you should be fine for that.
Cool. Maybe while we're looking for the next question, we can ask the audience a question actually. So this was a 101 webinar this morning, and we'd be curious to know if anyone would be interested in a part 2 on this topic, maybe like a deeper dive type of style webinar. So let us know in the poll there. We'll give everyone a few moments here.
So in the deeper dive, we're thinking about going into more detail with some custom code options. What else were we thinking of, guys? I know raster stuff was brought up a few times when we were building this webinar, or maybe even streaming data directly to a web map you have.
Yeah, those are all good topics for advanced. We could also get more into sort of the web development workflows too. That side of things could be automated with server and workbench together. Interacting with databases and hosting your web layers on the cloud, that kind of thing.
Okay, I'll close out the poll now, and the answer is pretty unanimous here. So that's great to know. We'll definitely look at that for maybe the spring or the summer, doing a part 2 there. All right. Any other key questions there before we play another round of GeoGuessr?
Were the distance measurements in City Guesser game done on geographic production?
Yes, or actually, hold on. No, that was projection. Let's see, what was the name of it? I think it was azimuthal equidistant. So that was one of the challenges of finding the proper distance between 2 points, because like if you go on, or if anyone's gone on a flight from North America to Asia, you know that the plane flies up, or it looks like it flies up on maps, but it's actually flying straight across because that's the shortest distance. That was something I discovered while building this. So yeah, azimuthal equidistant was the way to go.
Okay, did that look like all of the key ones there, Sienna?
I think so. I think we have time to play a game.
Okay, perfect. And in case you aren't able to stick around for the few minutes of the game, thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to our presenters as well. If you do have a brief moment, if you can fill out our webinar survey at the end, I believe it's just 5 multiple choice questions, so it continually allows us to improve our program with your feedback. So thanks, everyone. Okay, and over to you, Mark, with the game.
Okay. Let's see. Set myself to the presenter. All right, is everybody able to see that?
Yes.
All right. So, big question, where is this?
This looks similar to the last one, the southern
Yeah.
coast.
I would guess it's an island.
Mhm.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay.
Oh, do you
Any
think
guesses from the audience?
Yeah, let's see if we can get some guesses from the audience.
Yeah.
I see
This is
some blue water along the coast there.
yeah.
Which part?
Just in the imagery that there's some really beautiful blue coastlines. It looks like it could be tropical.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're getting that in the chat too. So I have Yucatan Peninsula, Dominican Republic.
Good guesses.
Yeah.
The Caribbean.
Yeah, I'm feeling that too.
I'm just looking at the coastline in comparison. It looks like you can see some similar shapes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hold on.
Yeah. Oh,
I actually have it.
wow, guys.
Yeah. Is there a time limit on this? I feel like we've really had time to process.
I don't think there's a time limit, or at least I haven't set it. And so
Let's see, there's
5 kilometers away.
Okay,
That
that's
was it.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Good job, chat.
Mhm.
yeah. And
Yeah.
Elena in the chat had that before even us. Dominican Republic. Well done, everyone. Good guesses.
Yay. Super fun.
All right, cool.
All right. Yeah, and with that, I think we're just at the hour mark here. Awesome. Thanks so much to all 3 of you and our audience for joining this morning. If you do have anything to chat with us about further, definitely connect with us, info@safe.com. And we'll also hang out for a couple minutes here on the back end, just in case any other questions come in, or if you want to save out any links from the chat there. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.
All right, bye.